No Dalvin news to report, no Christian Wilkins extension to report. So you know what? Why not just run with a viewer Q&A video? So before we get started, thanks first and foremost to everyone who did submit a question. And I do want to say off the bat, if I don't get to your question, if I simply missed your question, I apologize. Keep throwing them out there in the future. What I typically do with these kind of videos is I put a request out for questions on the YouTube community page and or Twitter as well. So continue every time we do these videos, continue to flood them my way. I promise I will get to as many as possible each and every time we do it. I'm going to start right away though with probably the hardest question that I got. And yes, it does deal with Dalvin Cook as well. And the question is, should we sign a defensive tackle and or a linebacker for depth instead of signing Dalvin Cook? Now, I'll tell you what, I see the Cook signing from both sides. You want to go all in right now? You want to take your offense to even another level from what it already is when you're talking about skill players and playmakers? If you can get Dalvin Cook to sign at the price that you want to, go ahead. But at the end of the day, if he wants more money, and we already have Mostert, Wilson, Achane, and we can add depth to defensive tackle, to linebacker, to offensive line, I get that side as well. And quite honestly, I think we can be just fine on offense with the running backs that I rattled off. So I'm probably like 60-40 on this one. I'm kind of copping myself out a little bit here. I would actually rather that money be spent elsewhere, but I completely understand it if the Dolphins do go ahead and sign Dalvin Cook. But what do you think, though? Like, you already have enough guys. If you can deal with an injury at running back right now, and you'll probably be fine. But can you deal with David Long being injured? Can you deal with Christian Wilkins or Zach Sieler being injured? That's where things get a little bit iffy for me. And those are more important positions, especially that interior defensive line, in my opinion, than what running back is. So, yeah, I guess I would rather see that money spent elsewhere. But I've talked myself into it where if we sign Dalvin Cook, I will be over the moon ecstatic as well. So, like I said, played a little bit of both sides of that question, but I'm about 60-40. Let's go on to the next one. We're talking running back still. Do you think Devon Achane will eventually become a featured running back that gets the bulk of the carries, or is he limited to always being a piece in a committee? Now, if you've been following the Fins Up Network through the draft, post-draft, OTAs, minicamp, you know that I love me some De'Von Achane. But with that said, he's not cut out to be that featured running back, that bell cow type of running back. The Derrick Henrys, the Jonathan Taylors, the Austin Ekelers, even Austin Ekeler shares carries here and there. That's just the way we're seeing the NFL go right now. There's not a lot of guys that are that featured guy, that 1A with not much of a 1B. The NFL is really running back by committee right now, and the Dolphins are maybe the poster child for that running back by committee due to all the guys that I said. But with his size, we all know De'Von Achane isn't the biggest guy in the world. But what you do like about him is that he plays at his size very well. He still breaks tackles. He can still finish forward. So he's still not the easiest guy to bring down. But I don't think this is not a guy you're going to turn and hand the ball off to 20 times and you're still going to pepper him with 5 or 6 targets. I don't think he'll ever be that. But I don't think that's an issue at the same point in time. I think you can use him in a committee and you keep him a little bit more fresh, and he's even more dynamic and more effective when he is on the field. So that's actually, I think, his ideal role in this offense and whatever offense he was going to end up being in. Here we go. Connor Williams. What's the holdup? He's more important. The question reads, he's more important than a dozen Dalvin Cooks. Hard to argue because, offensive line in this offense is going to probably be the reason for success or what we would consider the season to be a failure if it does fail and it doesn't get the results that we want. And quite honestly, I don't have a lot of latest intel on the Connor Williams situation. My assumption is that since OTAs have completed, since minicamp has wrapped up, we've got some time off now. The Dolphins are off for a while until later in July, August, when training camp hits and when preseason hits. I think they can kind of afford to just wait this out. Maybe Connor Williams changes his mind. Maybe some teammates get into his ear and say, you know what? Understand you want to get paid, but at the same time, we've got something special brewing here. So I think they're almost kind of in a situation where they can wait this one out. They can see how it plays out, and then they can see what they're going to do with Dalvin Cook, with Christian Wilkins, with Zach Sieler, with that money that was freed up from Byron Jones. They can kind of just sit back and relax and just see if this thing plays out. Because we see not always players from the Dolphins, but players around the NFL that they kind of hold out every year. We see it every year, and sometimes it goes into the season. Sometimes they get their extension, but at other times, teams call their bluff. Guys show back up. So there is a chance that happens. But at this point in time, I don't think there's a huge urgency in regards to like caving in to Connor Williams and giving him a contract extension. Let's go on to the next one. So the question reads, if the offensive line stays healthy, where would you rank it compared to the rest of the league? Teron Armstead, Robert Hunt, and Connor Williams are all very solid to very good. Liam Eichenberg could break out, but he is average. Right tackle is somewhat of a question mark. And then is health injury the most important factor for the offensive line? So a lot to unpack there. And I'll tell you right away, I'll be honest. I follow every team as well, but I don't follow every team the way that I follow the Miami Dolphins. So being able to say where the Dolphins slot in regards to ranking for an offensive line, not qualified to do that. But if I was making an assumption, if you've got Teron Armstead, who's one of the best left tackles, you got Robert Hunt, who's probably a top 5 to 7 right guard, and you got Connor Williams, who's probably about a top 5 to 10 center. That's 3 guys of your 5 that you need, and we all know what we need with the other positions. That probably alone is enough to get you into that top 20 mix. Now, it's all going to depend on, can Liam Eichenberg hold down that left guard spot, and can Austin Jackson stay healthy, and is his new physique, is his new attitude going to lead us to a little bit more promising results and production at the right tackle spot. So yeah, we're going to have to kind of see how that is. But if I'm taking a shot in the dark, I'm probably in that 15 to 20th range. And then the second part is health injury the most important factor for the offensive line? And yeah, because if you look at what the Dolphins did with the offensive line, this free agency, during the draft, post-draft, it's all been just kind of depth guys. It's been what? It's been Dan Feeney. It's been Obuehi, Isaiah Wynn. It's guys that can compete and push people throughout practice, throughout training camp, but not like a guy that you're just going to plug and play, like what we were able to do with Connor Williams, what we were able to do with Teron Armstead. It's not those kind of guys. So keeping our starters healthy, which we really didn't do all that much last year. Teron Armstead was banged up every single damn week. Right tackle was kind of a rotating position as well, with Liam Eichenberg was hurt. Austin Jackson was hurt. Brandon Shell came in. Greg Little came in. I mean, we were all over the board, and you know what happens when your offensive line is hurt. And you know what happens when your offensive line is hurt, and you bank on your offensive line to protect a quarterback like Tua, who hopefully things can change and you can get the ball out a little bit faster and he can remain healthy as well. But yes, that offensive line health performance is going to be, we've talked about it twice now, is going to be the driving factor as to how this season plays out, in my opinion. I got time for one more. The question reads, should the Dolphins extend the contracts of defensive tackles Zach Sieler and Raekwon Davis now, or allow them a prove-it year? Keep in mind, next year's draft will be loaded with great quality defensive tackles. Well, it's funny because you look at our top 3 interior defensive linemen. It's the 2 you got listed, Christian Wilkins as well. All these guys in the final year of their contract. And quite honestly, I'd love to keep them all. Davis is the Christian Wilkins obviously has first-round draft capital. He's lived up to that draft capital. Raekwon Davis was what, a second-round pick with a lot of upside. Like, he balled out at Alabama right away, and then he kind of came back to earth a little bit through his remaining time. But the production was there because the guy is just a physical freak, and he hasn't been disappointing by any means. He's kind of lived up to that capital. He's been pretty good. And then you got Zach Sieler, who you got him off the streets, and he has 100% earned starter type of snaps. So it's like, can you keep all these guys at the price that they're going to entail, especially with Christian Wilkins, who's going to be wanting that 18 to 20 million a year, probably, just ballparking it? I don't think you're going to be able to extend all these guys. So Christian Wilkins gets my preferred money, my preference money. Zach Sieler is right behind there as well. And at the end of the day, you might just have to roll things out with Raekwon Davis. Let him play this one out. Let him maybe test free agency next offseason, see how that plays out. We're looking way far ahead in this point in time, but it's still important because this is a very important position that Vic Fangio really wants to invest time, resources, energy into. And at the end of the day, we got 3 guys that are going to be coming up for contract extensions. And money's going to get tight. Money is eventually going to get tight with the guys that we have on these big time deals. So I don't think we can really afford to extend Wilkins, Sieler, Davis all this offseason, but maybe you can get Wilkins done. Hopefully you can get a guy like Sieler done, but I don't have intel on that. Like I said, I'm just hoping at this point in time, but you're probably going to have to let at least one of these guys play it out and then see how things play out in free agency. But I'm going to wrap it up right there. Like I said, I apologize if I missed or didn't get to any of the additional questions. I'll continue to do more of these throughout the offseason when we have a little bit more downtime. But that is my time for today, Miami Dolphins fans. And until next time, fins up.